All right. My name is Zach Compton. I'll be presenting our presentation for today. Um, this is our presentation over the Hotel Hell episode that was assigned to us. And in my group is Ariana Keith, um, Rihanna Solomon, Haley Sheeter, and myself. So we can get started with this. Okay. So the first topic that we covered was unhygienic and outdated accommodations. This is it, many of the things in the room come from the owner's personal residence. He basically just puts a whole bunch of his stuff into the room, and this does pose a problem for a health standpoint. As pointed out in the video, there was evidence of bodily fluids on the mattresses, and then all of the rooms are dirty as well. Most of the guests are fairly disgusted by their state of accommodations. And then the furniture in the rooms has cigarette holes as well. And, the entirety of the interior is outdated and needs to be modernized so that it actually looks like a functioning hotel. So the suggestions for this, replacing the furniture in the rooms with brand new furniture, and then not using the furniture from the owner's personal residence. New furniture will also liven up these spaces, make it more accommodating for the guests, and then hiring actual room cleaning staff to stay on top of the rooms to keep the rooms clean. Okay, and then some positive and negative impacts from this. Getting new furniture for the rooms will attract more guests, and they could make market changes. New furniture also means that they could make the space look more modern to attract a younger generation, a younger clientele. And then hiring new cleaning staff could also take some of the weight off the current staff and allow each person to focus more on their own work and the work that they have at hand, so that the overall efficiency of the hotel can be improved and increased. And then some negative sides from this is both of these suggestions could cost the hotel quite a bit of money in the beginning for these changes. It also might take a while to find this cleaning staff and to find furniture for the rooms. So it could take the time away, and then it could suddenly put a pause on some of the rooms that the guests may not like very much. But in the long run, I believe it will turn out fairly well. So this next one is using the guest rooms for personal storage. So the owner of the hotel has kept many of the rooms closed off and uses them for his own things. The guests have to stay in a motel besides the actual hotel itself because of the lack rooms in the main hotel being used up by this personal storage. The hotel is losing money and only has 4 suites in the actual hotel itself that can be booked. All the other rooms are in the motel that is beside the actual hotel that people want to reside in while they're staying there. So some storage suggestions: cleaning out the room to allow more space for the guests will boost revenue and allow more people to book. And then the second one is they could build onto the hotel to allow space for more storage if they have nowhere else they can keep it. They could also rent out a storage center. They could rent out a storage unit, put the stuff in there, but instead they're using these rooms to occupy them with their own stuff and space, and they're wasting money. And in the long run, it will not work out, and people are being forced to stay in a separate area because of this. All right. So some positive and negative impacts from this. Clearing out the rooms will allow more people to book than ever before, meaning the hotel will make more money. And then building onto the hotel to allow for more storage means they could use it to store whatever the hotel needs stored, along with the extra furniture. And then some negatives: building onto the hotel could be expensive and take quite a bit of time. Clearing out the rooms may cause problems for Philip if he has nowhere else to put the items. They're taking up so much space, and this is where the storage unit comes in. You can take the storage unit and put all of the stuff that's taking up all the space in the rooms, and then occupy the storage unit with this space, and then you can have these open available rooms in your actual hotel, which should draw in more clientele for you. Okay. Next one, we're moving on to poured food and beverage management. So there are multiple issues found with the hotel regarding the management of the food and beverage sector. Almost all of the food was purchased through a manufacturer, which means most of it's going to be frozen off the shelf in prepackaged boxes. Uh, Philip, the owner, said he was doing this in order to play the safe card by cutting corners and saving money, when in reality he is just saving money, so he doesn't have to spend as much, so he can just get these cheap prepackaged items. And then Philip also spends most of the day drinking, and the bartender actually said an average of around 8 drinks per day. And those are the only drinks that are accounted for that are made by the bartender. Um, so Philip is known to have this drinking problem, which is wasting the money in terms of the beverage management, because I'm sure that Philip is not paying for the drinks either. And then some of the kitchen staff was also only given 12 to 16 hours a week of paid working hours. And then some of the food prep staff was only given 20 hours a week to work. And in most restaurants, the prep staff is given 8 hours a day. So the food prep staff themselves are only getting about 2 days worth of work, which is not going to be enough, not nearly enough, if you want to run a successful restaurant. And then on top of that, the kitchen staff only getting 12 to 16 hours a week. That is not livable situation. Most of them must have had second jobs in order to provide support for their family. So to move on next, we have the food and beverage suggestions. So the first one is hire a manager who is solely responsible for organizing and keeping inventory on the food and beverage. This should help with ordering the food that is not prepackaged anymore. You can keep count on the drinks, make sure that Philip is not stealing drinks or getting free drinks, just so he has to buy them, just to keep up with the inventory, at least in the short term. Maybe not in the long run once everything gets smoothed out. But onto the second one, you can stop ordering pre-made products that are frozen and instead order products that will allow the kitchen staff to make meals from scratch. This will draw in much more clientele because you actually have food which the customers are going to enjoy, because it is not prepackaged, it's not frozen, it's not something that they can just go to the grocery store and buy. This will up the costs a little bit, which is a negative from it. However, you are going to draw in more clients and you're going to draw in more guests because your food is actually going to taste good. Onto the third one, no more playing the safe card for Philip, and this kind of correlates with the second bullet point. Philip needs to understand he's going to get low quality food and beverage options by ordering these low priced items. And then onto the fourth one, and all of these are mainly tied together. Allow the kitchen staff to work fully, and even if there's not enough money available to do so in the current situation of the hotel, you must let some of them go, at least in the short term, just so they can get another job and actually provide support for their family so they don't feel tied to working for this hotel. And they can get a job that is able to provide support and enough monetary income so they can support their families. All right, and then the suggestions continued for the food and beverage sector, and these kind of just kind of sum up all of the food and beverage issues and suggestions. Philip and the hotel's restaurant could move towards sourcing their food through local businesses or farms. This way the food will be fresh and cared for, instead of frozen and shipped. And then the second one, by upgrading food, rooms, and service, Philip will end up making more money for the business. He won't have to cut corners to save money because the business will make up for the costs in what could be their newly renovated success. And all of that is kind of tied together into the same ideology for the food and beverage sector. And then here are some potential positive and negative impacts. So positive, by sourcing food locally, customers will see that the business really cares about how it's run, and they will be more likely to eat at the restaurant or suggest it to friends. Suggest it to friends and family, get more business in the door. And then on top of image, the taste of the food will improve greatly, bringing in more business by upgrading the kitchen, its food, and how its staff are treated and respected. Philip won't need to worry about saving money everywhere he can, and then business will succeed um, if he shows he actually cares about what he is doing and providing to his guests. And then to move on to some of the more negative impacts, it may be difficult for the local butchers and or farms to keep up with um, what they need to provide the hotel and restaurant. It may be a struggle on the end that is actually supplying all of the items, or they may be unwilling to help because of Philip's reputation. As for upgrading the kitchen, food, etc., um, the only negative is that will take some time to bring these food together and truly renovate the restaurant on the hotel, and that also includes money, time. The time and money that you're going to have to take in order to do this will be substantial. However, in the long run, like I've been saying, it will make a greater impact. All right, so to move on to the next point, no respect for each other, and then kind of what happened. So the owner, Philip, is an alcoholic who continues to disrespect his business as well as his employees. His employees and wife believe that he needs help in order to run the hotel successfully. They even mentioned they don't like to be near him when he drinks or when he's been drunk. Um, and then Philip and the employees argue and blame each other, although it is Philip who doesn't provide proper care and compensation for the hotel's workers to begin with. The staff is afraid to discuss issues with Philip due to his tendency to shift blame and ignore their complaints. It was something that was very obvious in the video that we were watching. Philip was not the type of person to take blame for anything, and he was shifted onto somebody else. All right. And then some suggestions for this. Although we would not be able to fix Philip's drinking problem, it would be an important step in the right direction to have a no drinking rule for everyone working in the hotel. Every employee should be at their absolute best while on the job, including Philip, especially Philip because he is the general manager and the owner. So alcohol consumption should not be happening during working hours. And then HR, it's very obvious that there is little respect between the employees and their boss on both ends. It seems that employees are afraid to bring up complaints, suggestions, or issues with Philip because of his demeanor when he's drinking, which is most of the time. And then by having a HR or human resources position filled, communication and respect should be restored through that third party person. They could offer workshops and team building seminars to better help the hotel staff trust and comfortability. And then to move on from that, we have some positive and or negative impacts from this. To start with, we have the positive impacts. So there should be a no drinking rule. Philip would be sober for longer periods of time, leaving him to be a more coherent boss and also help with his alcohol problem. His employees would have more respect for him for what he says and does, even if when he isn't drinking while making decisions. And then everyone would be on top of their game and more professional in general because of the no alcohol. And less money will need to be spent on alcohol because it's only being sold to guests. And then the positive impacts for adding the HR department, the staff would have a safe space to communicate their issues instead of being too scared to talk directly to Philip. The HR head would make sure Philip is treating all his employees fairly and professionally. And then Philip and the staff could learn to communicate better with each other and react better with each other when disagreeing on something. And then to move on to the negative impacts here, according to the no drinking rule, this would be a very hard policy change for Philip to accept and take, and it would take a lot of convincing. And then employees may feel even more resentment towards Philip for his alcoholism since they have to suffer the consequences from it. Although the no drinking rule has always been implied in any job that I have worked in, any job that I have ever heard of. So I'm not sure why this would be such a negative impact to everybody, but regardless. And then onto the human resources, the negative impacts from that. It would be another job that would need, a proper salary and taking more money from the business, which appears to be struggling to begin with. So it may be a little bit of a difficult task to implement that. Um, and people may not take the HR department seriously. So if you do this, you need to get somebody who is professional and actually cares about their work. They could be complaining too often, or on the other end, not using it as they should. And this is talking about the staff of the hotel, you know, complaining and going up to the HR department to discuss things with them. All right. And then the last one, staff is being underpaid and the money distribution is wrong. The staff still get paid minimum wage even after being there for over a decade, which is a fairly considerable amount of time for anybody in any position, which most of the time should result in a promotion of some sort, but this hotel does not do that. And then the next one, Philip flaunts his wealth in front of his staff, which is terrible and concerning because nobody should really do that, especially when they're drinking as much as Philip does and do not take care of the hotel as much as Philip does. The next one, not generating any money enough for staff. This is basically focusing on how the hotel is not getting enough profit from their sales to provide their staff with an income. And then the next one, there's not enough hours for a stable income for the workers and their families. This is very tied in to the third point and the fifth point. The fifth point being $500 for every 2 weeks is insane. That was the average salary that people were gaining there, is only $500 every 2 weeks. That is not a sustainable amount of money to live off of, especially when they're working almost full time as they are. They're working this many hours and they're not getting paid almost anything. So it's going to be very difficult for them to support themselves, especially if they have a family too, which most of them did. All right, and then the last one, suggestions on money use. So this is going to first cover, Philip either needs to put effort into paying his staff well or do a better job in the money distribution correctly so that it benefits everybody. And then Philip can do that by not spending money for his own benefit, gaining his cars and jewelry that he always flaunts and shows everywhere. He always shows everybody that he always has a lot of money, but he never actually pays his staff much. The third one, also by opening more ways for the hotel to make money, for instance, allowing the hotel rooms to actually be used instead of his stuff being stored in there. This ties back to what I was talking about earlier with the storage unit. You do not need to be storing your own sources of property in these hotel rooms. You need to get a storage unit or some sort of storage facility to store these in. Yes, it will cost more money in the short term. However, in the long term, once you actually have these rooms available for use, you will see more benefit from it. And then lastly, if he applies some of these things, it means more income for his staff, especially. And if not, that is also how he will lose his staff. So, and that is all we have. I think that's it. I don't think I'm missing anything. If you have any questions, just email any of us in the group. Thank you.